Guts from birth was doomed to an eternity of sorrow and pain. Since the inception of his birth, Guts has gone through nothing but struggle, of agony, of sufferings, just so much, and just so needlessly, by virtue of the fact that he was just unlucky. He was born from a woman that was presumably accused of being a witch, right from a tree, and born amid her dead guts. His new adoptive mother was insane and died of a plague that we don't even know the name of. His own father essentially just blames him for her death, and it's just such a barbaric cruelty and a sense of need for validation, of comfort. His own sense of value to himself is so distorted and malformed and just malign ever since he's been born. Here we see really a definition of how he's defined as a person. His anger consumes him. He has insecurity issues. He doesn't like being touched after what happened with him and Donovan. He has severe trust issues and he can't really open himself up to people. And the beauty of the boyhood chapter really was sort of like a shifting point for him into what he would become down the line, and then that would lead of course towards the campaign that he would meet the Band of the Hawk, where he meets the people who would help him kindle his sense of purpose, his sense of being, and break down those walls. And that's what makes his inevitable Black Swordsman arc all the more of a tragedy to it. And Guts during this whole arc is, needless to say, absolutely broken and mad. That is putting it lightly. He's absolutely insane. He's hell-bent on nothing but revenge. Ultimately, Gus's dream, his ambition, is not going to lead to anything positive for him. It's a sense of despair and horror that's going to be consuming him if he keeps walking down the road of a vengeful angel, a monster, a beast of darkness itself. And I think it's a very common thing that people tend to forget what the Beast of Darkness is. It's not a literal thing. It certainly becomes a literal manifestation for Guts when he dons the Berserker armor. But it's not literally a beast, a demon. It's Gus's manifestation of his trauma and his own inner maternal urges, basically. His own darkness, his own sense of being, of evil that lays buried deep within him from all the years of trauma. It has to be understood, everything that Guts went through as a kid doesn't suddenly disappear, nor does it get nullified after Casca basically bonds and they fall in love with each other. It was exacerbated and made worse, and it takes years, maybe even months, potentially going by the Berserk timeline, for Guts to finally adapt and sort of break down. And now he's reaching his other breaking point because he has nothing there. He's really struggling against the hopeless. There's really no sense of escape for him, and that's a major thing. You can't escape from the reality of everything that's going around you. He is a broken vessel of pottery, and that vessel, no matter how much you try to stitch it back together, it can't go back to the way it was. He's tired, he's exhausted, and right now he's in utter despair as of the current chapters. He is just utterly mentally and spiritually broken, and he might very well just give in to whatever matter of evil lays buried deep within him. Guts is doomed to go to hell. That is a fact right now. The God Hand seemed almost nigh immortal, and we can barely scratch them. We got that confirmed by the Griffith encounter. Guts' character essentially is living in absurd circumstances and just thriving because of that. Guts doesn't have greater dreams. He doesn't believe in God. He's honestly borderline atheistic now. And I mean atheistic in the fact of anti-theistic. He refuses to believe in God and actually depends on himself to live. He doesn't really care if there is such thing as hope. He just wants to live and be left alone, and to finally take care of Casca and be with her, and now he can't even be that. Why he stays strong, why he keeps struggling, is because he is the absurd man. He goes and commits these absurd acts. He goes ahead and fights against the idea of gods. He fights against his very identity, his very fate. He continues to thrive despite these extreme circumstances because he is just built different. He struggles on and on. That is his identity now. He's a conqueror, not in the way that Griffith wanted to be. He's not concerned with these goals or ambitions. He doesn't really have these aspirations and hope. Guts thrives because he knows his limits. He knows what it's like to be weak, and that he can be weak. Griffith can never accept that. And that's what makes Guts such a beautifully written character, is that despite this hopelessness, he thrives, and he aims to be happy in a universe that just seems to be out against him. Guts and his whole life isn't a construct. It's calamity, and it's basically causality. Cause to effect, effect to cause, and he will surpass even ideas of hope in a world that's hopeless because he's that much of absurdity inherently to itself. He has a sense of purpose in the people around him. It's not a hopeful thing. He is probably going to go to hell if he does die one day. Whether it's from the armor, from protecting Casca, there's no rest, there's no real sense of an ending towards Guts in that regard, but he keeps on going. Ceaseless, it's pointless, and it just seems to never end, but he keeps on going.
Guts and Griffith and their dynamic is something that's become very iconic within the industry. How they so beautifully contrast each other, are just so beautifully intertwined, right down to the aesthetic of their designs and their symbolic meanings and interpretations. They do such a wonderful job of contrasting each other, of speaking about the commentary of humanity, and it's such a unbelievably ingenious portrayal, and it's such masterful writing. Thank you, Kentaro Miura. May you rest in peace. A genius taken far too soon.